The whole reason I became a filmmaker, or what was exciting to me about going into film, was thinking about telling stories of people who were not represented on screen as much as I wished I had kind of grown up with. And so that's why I think I tend to be drawn to these stories about really interesting, complex, sort of female characters that are, we don't often get to spend 90 minutes to 2 hours in their world and their shoes.
We'll want to sell the place. 30 years ago, right after Eric, after he was gone. "Now move on," he said. "Just move on, sell the house." I couldn't. Maybe he was right. Maybe I've got to move on.
Though she lives in a larger tank than me, I can deduce that the cleaning lady also wishes to break free. My superior intelligence makes me uniquely attuned to the behavior of all creatures. And I suspect that what she needs to escape lurks somewhere deeper.
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today, she is having a real run in her career here, even though she's only made 3 feature films so far. All of them have been in the awards conversation, critically acclaimed, and popular. Really important to be popular. Current film is Remarkably Bright Creatures on Netflix, of course. Where the Crawdads Sing was a huge hit 4 years ago. And before that, a terrific little movie I reviewed on Deadline called First Match. This is Olivia Newman. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
When I say you're on a little roll here, it seems like every 4 years you have a movie people like to talk about.
Wow. Well, I feel very lucky to get to do this. I'm just thrilled that I'm working and doing what I love. Yeah.
Is luck a part of that? I don't think so. I think you prepared for this, and
these stories that I am drawn to that have really interesting characters, I think also speak to something universal that audiences seem to really connect with. So in that way, I feel lucky that my taste is connected with, with the kinds of stories that audiences seem to be really interested in seeing.
And what I find interesting about those 3 films I just mentioned, First Match, Where the Crawdads Sing, and now Remarkably Bright Creatures, all 3, the main driver of it is female characters. Mm-hmm. And the main drivers behind the scenes are female.
Mm-hmm.
Crews, and of course you as a director, producer, writer, and all of that, but cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, on down the line, editor, all of that is very important to you to have a female-driven crew for these stories?
It is. It's mostly important to me to have a crew that comes to the project with the same passion that I do and connects with the story and the characters and the reason that we're telling the story. And those tend to be women because they are kind of female-focused stories.
Yeah.
I always interview everybody, so it's not that I am, it's not that I have a bias against hiring men. But
what the hell, let's give the women a chance here.
I've worked with wonderful, wonderful men, of course, on all of my crews. But I think that these tend to attract some of the best women in all departments. And so I feel really fortunate that I've gotten to make all of my films with pretty much all women heads of departments on all 3 of my movies.
I remember singling out Ashley Connor, her cinematography on First Match.
Yes.
And I could tell right then, I didn't know her before that.
Yeah.
And you've worked with her again.
Yeah, I worked with Ashley Connor on First Match. She was an absolutely brilliant cinematographer on that very small movie where we had very little resources. We shot in 22 days, over 40 locations. in late July in Brooklyn, so grueling heat, and she shot the whole thing handheld on her shoulder, and I was just, the way that she was able to embody the emotional interior experience of the character through that real physical shooting style was what I wanted for that film. Remarkably Bright Creatures is a very different style, but I also wanted her to bring that same sort of access to the interiority of characters with her cinematography, but this time, using much wider landscapes and bringing in, the context of the setting. And she's just one of my favorite people to work with. So I was so excited that we finally got to do it again on this one.
It's so great. I as you know, I showed this movie in the theater to my screening series about a month before it opened, and they just loved it. And when I asked how many have read the book, so many hands went up. So there's a lot of pressure or expectation or whatever. When you're doing adaptations, you're no stranger to it, because Where the Crawdads Sing was this huge book that you brought to the screen with your adaptation there, which you didn't write that
I
one.
didn't, no, Lucy Allen.
Yeah, you directed it. And it turned out to be a ginormous hit in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
$90 million or something in America.
Domestic.
And 150 worldwide.
Yeah.
For a movie that Hollywood, every time they make those movies and they're successful, I always say, get a clue.
Yeah.
Audiences want to see these stories.
Yes.
And it seems so hard to get them out there.
I know. I don't know why. I mean, it seems like now that the book adaptation is sort of, it seems to be a way to get studios to trust that there will be an audience because they have this kind of built-in book fan base. So that's why I feel like very lucky that I keep being sent books that I am really excited to see on the screen, that also have an audience that's excited to see them adapted, and that gives studios kind of the confidence to put money behind it and tell these
Of course, that's
really
as old as
interesting,
Hollywood
dramatic,
itself. Adaptations and things. I don't know where it fell off a cliff, but it changed, and now it's just such a rarity.
Yeah.
When you see these, particularly driven at a female audience who have proven time and time again that they will show up.
Yes.
If you give it to them there.
Yes. The whole reason I became a filmmaker, or what was exciting to me about going into film, was thinking about telling stories of people who were not represented on screen as much as I wished I had kind of grown up with. And so that's why I think I tend to be drawn to these stories about really interesting, complex, sort of female characters that are, we don't often get to spend 90 minutes to 2 hours in their world and their shoes.
Like the Marsh girl in Crawdads.
Yeah.
To Tova in Remarkably Bright, and the age gap here is considerable, but it's really interesting to see these protagonists going about things, and particularly also in First Match, your lead there was an incredibly great part for a young actress.
Well, all of these characters are, they're struggling to find their place, to find their voice, to figure out what their purpose is, to find a way to live and find joy again, right? And I mean, they're all in completely different contexts and different ages and different settings, different time periods, but I think there's something really universal in that search for purpose and in that desire to feel joy when, life has all these obstacles kind of coming at you, whether they're, very personal or, survival stakes, as in Crawdads. There's still, I think, inherent in what it is to be human is this desire to really live life to its fullest, to find joy in living. And that's what I loved so much about Remarkably Bright Creatures, is we get to see that through the eyes of a woman in a later phase of life, in her 70s, and we get to see it through the eyes of this young man in his 30s who's sort of really feeling lost because he doesn't have a kind of a sense of purpose. And and to be able to show that that can happen at different phases of life and that you can find those connections across generations because you can relate to each other even though you're in different places in your lives was really...
Which is so great, and all narrated by an octopus. You know?
Right.
You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Which is great. Now, how did you decide to use the, the structure of having it narrated by the octopus,
Marcellus,
which is sort of bringing these two characters you just described together, like a little bit of a matchmaker in a sense.
Yes, and that was always the intention, was for Marcellus to become the narrator. In the book, he has his own chapters, and in the book, each character gets their own point of view.
Right.
But even in the book, he functions as this sort of detective who's trying to figure out why these two people are connected and how to get them to see it in each other. It felt like for Marcellus to be present throughout the story, he really needed to have a hand in this relationship that's building between Tova and Cameron. Yeah. But I also think having the perspective of a species that is not us, kind of watching us from outside of ourselves, also allows us as humans to sort of take a step back and reflect on what it is to be human in all of our, all of our flaws and what we miss and, how we carry ourselves through lives and forget that there's this whole other world beneath the ocean, just as we don't see what's right in front of us. Yeah. So it kind of gives it an opportunity to, it offers a different perspective on
It's very interesting too, because we're looking at him and these creatures in an aquarium, and so you think it's the opposite of what you're talking about.
Exactly.
They're looking at us.
Exactly. Here's this octopus who spends all day observing humans, right, in this space that is built for humans to finally have the opportunity to come and observe these species that we don't normally get to see on land, right? So it's, it is this beautiful thing that Shelby does, allowing us inside of the point of view of somebody who is really the observer and kind of flip the script.
And it's nominated for an Emmy as Outstanding Television Movie, and also for Sally Field, her first Emmy nomination in 17 years.
Yes.
She's won 3 previously, but and been at it a long time. She had this first before you got involved, right? She knew that there was something to this book, which was a bestseller.
Yeah, and she read the book when it was still in galleys. Our producers, Brian Unclis and Peter Craig, shared it with her.
Peter Craig's her son.
And Peter
too.
Craig happens to be her son, so
and
he
Brian's
was able to...
a longtime collaborator of yours. So.
Brian produced First Match, and then Brian and Peter, of course, have worked together on the Hunger Games, and they had just started this company, and so it was, I think, one of the first projects that they put together and they brought to Sally, and it was the right fit for her. She was excited about it. So when I came on board, she was already playing Tova, and actually when I read the book the first time, I knew that. So I could imagine Sally as I was reading the book and picturing how he would adapt it with her voice in it.
That's kind of a blessing or a curse. If you don't know you're going to get the actor when you're writing something, oh God, what am I going to do? But here you knew you were getting the actor because she was already there.
Yes.
So that really helps you as a writer.
It was so helpful. It was so helpful because I could imagine her voice saying certain things or, how she would make something funnier. And then, of course, you get on set and, she adds even more humor and surprises you, every day on set. But yeah, for writing, I think it was such a gift to be able to picture her voice. Oddly, I couldn't picture the voice of Marcellus until I had the movie cut together. I just couldn't. Everyone wanted to know, who are you thinking of for Marcellus?
Well, there was an audio book that had Michael Urie as the voice.
And actually, I couldn't listen to the audiobook because I didn't, only because I didn't want any of the voices in the audiobook to affect my read of the book. I really wanted to go in fresh and imagine all of these characters in my own way. Yeah. So I didn't listen to the audiobook for that reason. And I think audiobooks are such a different format than a film. So I just didn't want, the two to confuse one another. But it really wasn't until the film was cut together and I had a dear friend who had done the temp voice for me, because I didn't want to get attached, to any particular voice, but I needed to feel the rhythm, and it wasn't until it was all cut together and we had our full Marcellus that then we could imagine someone like Alfred.
It's so
voicing
perfect.
him.
And when I saw it, I said, wow, how'd they get that octopus to act like this? You make it look so real,
Oh, gosh.
which is the trick here. I know you can't train an octopus, but boy,
Yeah.
it looks like you did.
That is a testament to our incredible VFX team at Untold and Chris Ritfo, our VFX supervisor. From the beginning, I made it really clear that I wanted to be able to shoot footage of a real octopus and integrate that into the movie because I didn't want the octopus to ever take us out of the real human grounded story that we were telling.
Plus, we've seen wonderful documentaries with real octopuses. The one, Oscar-winning one, Netflix, as well as your movie.
My Octopus Teacher.
My Octopus Teacher, The Soul of an Octopus.
People know what octopuses look like, and you don't want to be suddenly, watching this movie that feels like it's real characters in a real place, and then suddenly have an octopus that looks kind of cartoonish or kind of takes you out of it. So we cast our octopus up, and we knew we were going to shoot this in Vancouver, and they happened to have a giant Pacific octopus named Agnetha, who was going. We kind of tracked how big she was going to be by the time we shot, so we had a sense of, because they grow and grow and grow until they die. They never stop growing, so we had to sort of calculate about what her weight would be.
Have they thought about taking Ozempic for octopuses or something? I don't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we shot hours and hours of footage of Agnetha, and then our VFX team used that to model our CGI octopus after, and would always show me comps. Whenever they showed me our CGI octopus, they would show me Agnetha doing similar movement, so that any of the physicality was based on what an octopus could actually do. So I think that really helped it become
so interesting. Sally sat here and told me about acting opposite essentially nothing.
Yes, I'm sure she loved that.
Yes, well, Sally comes from the method. So
yes, she could see that octopus without it being there.
Without it being there, it's remarkable, which is why she's such a legend.
Unbelievable.
She just can do anything.
Yes, she could absolutely see him, and it made actually putting the CGI octopus then into her hands in post, we could absolutely see from her performance, what she was doing, what she was imagining, because she was so good at sort of feeling where that octopus was and how she was reacting to it. So it was pretty amazing. We had a couple of puppets built for certain scenes where she had to pick him up, or where it had to feel weighted. We had a weighted puppet, so she could we could always shot with the puppet at least once, so we could sort of get the motion correct. But then always did it without anything in the frame as well. So that was all just Sally's amazing imagination.
So cool. I mentioned the production design. I also say another star of this film is the house that she lives in. You go to a movie like that and you see, oh God, where did they get this house? I love this.
Yes.
The whole location and everything is beautiful.
It's a beautiful house. It is not
So you didn't build that?
Friendliest house to shoot in. We did not build it. It was on location. It's a house that we went and did a very early scout months before we started actual prep. We went up to Vancouver mostly to meet Agnetha and to cast our octopus. And then we drove around this town, Deep Cove, where we ended up shooting most of Sole Bay. And we were driving down this road that's right on the bay, and we knew we needed a house that overlooked water, because I didn't want to blue screen and do tons of VFX inside the house. I wanted to save all of our VFX budget for the octopus.
Right.
And so there are these houses overlooking the water, and I saw the rooftop of this house from the scout van. And I said, stop, pull over, and ran and looked down the side of this hill. And there was this house built on the side of the hill that, had this great rooftop and reminded me of the attic, from the book. And it's like, that looks like it could be Tova's house. It turns out the house was for sale.
Oh.
Brian was on Redfin looking up houses in the area. He said, there's a house for sale the interior looks cool. And it turned out it was the same house. Yeah. So we kept track of this house for months, and it didn't sell, and it didn't sell. And our location manager said, listen, I'm not going to bother this woman until we're really close to starting,
Right.
because if we scare her off too early, she'll never let us in.
Yeah.
So we scouted dozens of other houses, and just in my mind was always this house.
Yeah.
And then finally, as she predicted, 3 weeks before we were to start shooting, she contacted the woman, and she hadn't sold the house yet, so she was a little more open to the idea of, letting us use it.
Getting some extra money.
And so it was amazing that,
Wow.
luck was on our side with that.
Yeah, it was so perfect.
It was perfect, but it was on a hill, and it was very hard to light, and it was tight quarters. And
You're used to that. I mean, where the crawdads sing, you're in the middle of the swamps and the heat of summer and all of that, and having to go out on a boat and shoot and
Yes.
do all of that.
I think it makes a difference to actually shoot on location, to
Yeah.
actually bring the setting inside the interiors. I mean, that's the difference between building something where you then have to green screen everything. In this house, you could see the view that Tova sees, and you can move in and out of it and be on that hill and understand how dangerous those steps are that she has to walk down. It makes and I think it makes a difference for the actors too, to
Right.
really feel, what does it feel like to live in a house that overlooks the water where you lost your son, and to stare out at that every single day and be reminded. And in Crawdads, we built a house on this lagoon so that we could shoot Kaya coming in and out of her house, and we could be right there in the marsh. And I think it makes a difference. It's always really important.
You're always
to
doing
me.
weather and other things that you have to.
And that's important too.
Yeah.
I mean, we wanted it to be rainy and gray and overcast for Remarkably Bright. We did not want that as much for Crawdads, but we got it.
You got it anyway.
We got
but
it anyway,
It's
but
another beautifully shot movie.
yes, Polly Morgan's cinematography.
She did an amazing,
Beautiful, yes.
amazing job on that. That particular movie too, you had the benefit of Taylor Swift,
Yes,
right?
we did, yeah.
Carolina, that
Yes,
song.
a beautiful song,
Yeah,
yes. We had that song.
Did you go to her and say please, or what?
No, she came to us before a frame of the movie had been shot.
Wow.
And had written the song. She'd read the book and loved it so much, and this song came to her, and she wrote it. So we heard that song before Lucy and I were done with the script. I mean, before we had cast, we knew that Taylor had this song that she was hoping we would use. And when I heard it, I thought, oh my God, this is tonally exactly where we want to be at the end of the movie.
Which is a good thing, because if you didn't like the song, how do you tell Taylor
Can you
Swift?
imagine saying no to Taylor Swift? There's no way. No, it really, when I heard it the first time, I just, tears just streamed down my face, because it was, it reminded me so much of the pain of young Kaya losing her mother, and how that echoes at the end of the movie is, so that was some really brilliant luck.
So 2 big giant books here. Are you working on another one now? You want to do another adaptation?
I am. I am working on another adaptation. I'm really excited to be writing again. I'm writing and directing this. I'm also working with Brian again, and Netflix.
Again,
okay. Yes.
Because Netflix was on First Match.
Netflix was First Match.
And
Remarkably Bright.
Sony did Crawdads, but
Yes.
And they did this.
Yeah, this one. This one we brought to Netflix. It's called The Remembered Soldier. It's a Dutch book that was translated into English and was on the long list for the Booker Prize and a finalist for a National Book Award.
Wow.
And it's very different from the last 2 adaptations, but it's this unbelievable love story like I've never read. And it's about a Flemish soldier, 1922, Belgium, after World War I, who is living in an asylum and has amnesia, does not remember anything about who he is. And a woman comes to the asylum looking for her husband, and when she meets him is absolutely sure that it's him. And she takes him home and hopes that in being back home with their 2 children and in the photography studio that they run, that he will recover his memory. And it's a story about identity and memory and loss and the trauma of war, both on those who have been on the front lines and those who have been at home. And as I was saying to you earlier, it's a bit of a, in my mind, a bit of a feminist retelling of the Odyssey if you spent most of the movie on Calypso's island. But it's just an absolutely beautiful book. And
is that what everyone's going to go through now that the Odyssey is such a hit and been around? You know, like, it's just like the Odyssey.
That's right.
To get Hollywood to make these movies that aren't the 12th version of something we've already seen.
What's interesting is it was my uncle. I've had all my family members read this book because it's so good. And my uncle was the one who said, you know, there's a dog in this book, you know, his dog that remembers him before anybody else. And there, you know, there's all these sort of little subtle nods to the Odyssey.
Yeah.
And then I went and saw the Odyssey. And, you know, in the middle of the movie, my husband leans over and says, the Remembered Soldier is just like Calypso's telling of the Odyssey. So I think, I don't know if we're all just, it's in the zeitgeist or...
It's there,
but it's a beautiful book. I'm really excited.
Any way you can get these made, you know, in this day and age is a big plus. And I'm so glad. And, you know, it's a very popular book and movie version of Remarkably Bright Creatures. The Emmy nominations, well-deserved. I wish you the best of luck at the Emmys. And,
thank you so
going
much.
forward, can't wait to see The Remembered Soldier.
Yeah, me too.
So good. This is Olivia Newman. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to chat with you.